Dean and Tyler Listle are registered investment advisor representatives. Investment advisory services offered through Brokers International Financial Services, LLC, member SIPC. Brokers International Financial Services, LLC, and Secure Retirement Solutions, LLC are not affiliated companies.
It's time for Secure Retirement Solutions with your hosts, Dean and Tyler Listle, fully licensed retirement specialists from Secure Retirement Solutions in Green Bay. Now, here are your hosts, Dean and Tyler.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Tyler and I will discuss topics that affect your retirement, such as investments, income planning, Social Security, and much more. Good morning, Tyler. How are you?
Good morning, Dean. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Good. Thank you. Today we're going to talk about something that you're hearing financial planners and those looking towards retirement have been talking about here for a few months. It's called the Secure Act, SECURE, the Secure Act. And what this is really it's a law that's being proposed. It was passed by the House of Representatives in May of 2019. And now it's in front of the Senate. And if the Senate approves and passes, it'll go in front of the President for approval and be put into law. And really, the Secure Act gives favorable opportunities now for more people to invest, for more people to be able to pull from retirement accounts for things other than emergencies and a first-time purchase. Allows for people to save longer while they're still working past the limit where they're allowed to contribute to IRAs as of today. And also inheritance are going to be looked at differently. So all in all, in many ways, very favorable. However, you need to be aware of this going into retirement because there are some things that could have significant tax implications if you're not aware and do some planning around it. And we'll talk about those specific items as we go along here. But mainly 4 items that people are talking about from a financial standpoint in the Secure Act. Tyler, let's talk about those 4 items and then we'll get a little bit deeper in depth.
Yeah, Dean, and when it comes to the Secure Act, first off, that stands for Setting Every Community Up for Retirement Enhancement Act. So it's something that the government is taking initiative toward that usually they don't do something like this, but we tend to really like it because it, as you mentioned, Dean, there's 4 main points where it really helps people when it comes to retirement savings, and us as financial advisors and financial planners, something that we like to see. And just before I get into the main points, what I also wanted to mention is, as you had mentioned, Dean, on May 23rd of 2019, the bill was passed by the House of Representatives, and it's in front of the Senate right now. And the Senate came out and they said they want to approve it before 2020. So it looks like it's something that could very well likely be passed, but then again, you just never know. Especially when you're dealing with different bills that are going through legislature. So something that it's not officially passed yet, but it could be passed within the near future. But really, some major changes that it could potentially affect would be part-time workers having the opportunity to participate in 401k plans. So right now, only some part-time workers can participate, not many at all. It's all dependent upon the company. But what the new Secure Act would do is it would allow for a lot more part-time workers to participate in a 401k plan, which would be really beneficial. I know with us, we have a lot of clients that they might retire from full-time work and continue to work part-time to supplement their income in retirement, but yet they don't have the same accessibility to the 401ks that a full-time worker would. So this would give them an additional opportunity to continue to contribute to their retirement accounts even while they're working part-time in retirement. In addition to that, also gives you the chance to contribute to traditional IRAs for as long as you desire, provided you're still working. Right now, even if you're still working, because you have to have earned income to contribute to an IRA, even if you're still working, the IRS requires that you stop contributing and actually start taking money out at 70 and a half years old. So that would no longer be the case where if you work past that, instead of taking money out, you could continue to contribute to your account. In addition to that, something that we touch on quite a bit because it is important for a lot of retirees would be the RMD, or required minimum distribution. That is right now when you turn 70 and a half, if you have any type of pre-tax retirement account, so your 401k, profit sharing plan, traditional IRAs, at that time, when you're 70 and a half, you have to start taking money out. And under the Secure Act, they're proposing bumping that age from 70 and a half back to 72. So it could give you a couple more years to take advantage of the tax deferral and not have to touch that for at least a couple more years, which is a good thing for many workers if they don't need it. Couple other things. Penalty-free withdrawals from retirement accounts are to be allowed in certain circumstances. Right now, you can take, or typically if you were to take money from your IRA or 401k before 59 and a half years old, you have to pay taxes on it plus a 10% IRS penalty. Well, under the new Secure Act, there's certain things like if you have either adopt or give birth to a child, the IRS will now allow you to take a certain amount out of your retirement account without having to pay a 10% penalty. So there's other exceptions that might help quite a few workers right now where they can access retirement funds without having to pay a penalty. And in addition to that, overall the Secure Act we believe is a good thing, but there's one tax consequence that might come with it, and that is when it comes to people who inherit accounts. If you inherit a retirement account, so if you inherit an IRA or a 401k, under the new act, there's a requirement to withdraw the full balance within 10 years. Now, we're going to touch on that a bit later as we get into it, but that's something to keep in mind too, is that it does require you to withdraw the full amount. You can no longer do stretch IRAs where you can stretch that out over your lifetime. So just a few things or a few major changes that the Secure Act comes with, and again, something that it's not officially passed into law yet, but it could within the next few months.
Okay, so as Tyler got into it a little bit here on those four items, more part-time workers have an opportunity to 401ks, a chance to contribute to IRAs for as long as you desire, provided you're working. RMD shift from 70 and a half to 72, and inherited accounts being drawn down in 10 years. We're going to go a little bit deeper into each one here, and let's look at the opportunity for 401ks for part-time workers. As Tyler said, not only is it retirees who retire from their career job, but then want to work part-time for a number of years, don't have access to 401ks because they're deemed part-time. There are also a lot of people today, the workforce has changed a lot, where you just don't see as many people come out of college or come out of high school and get a job and stick with that one job for the rest of their career because it took care of them both financially and with benefits. Many times, unfortunately, people jump from job to job because those career jobs where they have both financials that can take care of your family and some of the benefits are no longer there. So they have to work a number of part-time jobs. And unfortunately, a lot of those part-time jobs don't offer 401ks or any retirement plans. So it's going to make retirement plans, 401ks mainly, more affordable for smaller businesses or businesses that employ seasonal and or part-time employees. Additionally, there's talk of additional retirement plans or retirement vehicles that can be put into these 401ks, such as annuities. We have heard discussions there, and part of the reason for that is people have seen what 403bs have done for individuals, or pensions, what they have done for individuals as they work their whole life. They basically take an opportunity to trigger the pension or the 403b as an annuity payout. And what happens is they've created their own personal pension and they'll receive lifetime income. Hence, they don't outlive their money. Right now with 401ks and other retirement plans that don't have that lifetime income option, unfortunately, we see people who don't know how to manage the money early on in their retirement. They draw too heavily and they run out of money in their 80s or 90s. So we feel that's a good plan to give the opportunity for a broader look at retirement plans within your 401k. And if the annuity is right for you, talk to your financial advisor and see if that's something that should be part of your selection in your 401k as you're working. So making it easier for people to start as part-timers in a 401k is going to be one of the options here. Tyler, what else should we talk about there?
Yeah, Dean, good points there. When it comes to the 401ks and allowing more part-time employees to participate in 401ks, that's something right now that isn't too common, and the main reason is because of the cost. Now, usually for a company to have one employee enroll within a 401k, it can be a couple $100 up to potentially even thousands of dollars per year for one employee with all the administrative costs that goes into it. So that right there shows that many employers, they're not willing to do that for part-time employees simply due to the cost. But now under the Secure Act, it's proposing that the employers can now do it because the costs are going to be shrunken, and that will allow for many employers to allow part-time employees to contribute to a 401k, which again is really good for those people trying to save, whether you're partially retired, or oftentimes we see it where there might be a husband and a wife, and the wife might go and they might have kids, and then she might be off for some time and getting back into work. Oftentimes part-time is what we see many spouses do when they're raising smaller children, and that offers a good opportunity for that spouse to go and contribute to a 401k as well and take advantage of of that retirement account. So definitely 401ks more accessible for part-time employees is obviously a good thing. In addition to that, right now, IRA contributions. So with an IRA, when someone is 70 and a half years old, that's when you can no longer contribute to it. You have to stop. So whenever you have earned income, in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you can contribute to an IRA. You can contribute up to $6,000 per year, or if you're 50 or older, you can contribute $7,000 per year. Now, at 70 and a half, you have to stop, and instead of contributing, you have to take money out, which is called your RMD. That's your required minimum distribution. So you have to actually take money out regardless if you're still working or not. But now under the Secure Act, that age limit would be removed entirely, where instead of taking money out and not contributing after 70 and a half, you could work well into your 70s and continue to contribute, which would allow older workers, obviously, to pick up on more retirement savings, because if you wanted to work until 75 and contribute to an IRA, you could. You wouldn't have to stop at 70 and a half anymore. And what this would do is it would allow someone to work part-time and be able to contribute and take up to a $7,000 IRA tax deduction, because with a traditional IRA, when you put money in, you get a tax break as you put the money in. Now, when you take the money out, that's when you're taxed on it. But what it can do is many people who, if they keep their income low enough, a traditional IRA might be the best thing. It might even be a better option than a Roth, because when you put money in, you can get that $7,000 tax deduction up front when you put the money in. So that's a really nice tax break for many people. And then when you do retire, if you keep your income low enough, there's many people that they can pull from an IRA and not even have to pay any taxes on it, or pay as little as 10% taxes on it, when here they might have been in the 22% tax bracket all throughout their working years. They retire, they don't need as much income, they dip down to the 10 or 12% tax bracket. That's ideal for people contributing to a traditional IRA. So that's something that you really can take advantage of. Again, if you're 70 and a half, you can continue to contribute. You no longer have to stop. And then every year that you contribute, you can also take a nice tax deduction as well. So that's something that the Secure Act offers that we find beneficial.
Okay, Tyler, the other thing too is increasing the RMD age, the required minimum distribution age, from 70 and a half to 72. Now, when we talk to people about that, they say, well, that's great. I don't have to be forced to take money from my qualified accounts for a little bit longer. But at the same time, it does create an issue if you don't have a plan. So what we mean by that is, the government tells you you have to take a certain amount from your qualified accounts, required minimum distribution. Well, if we defer those again from 70 and a half years old to 72, that's wonderful. You don't have somebody telling you what to do. But the goal here is to have your accounts continue to grow. If they continue to grow and you're not withdrawing from that account, you're going to be taking more from that account at 72 years old, and you're going to be paying more in taxes. So make sure that in your retirement, if you're withdrawing from accounts, talk to your advisor to find out if you're withdrawing from the right accounts. Many times people will get the wrong idea. They will think that I will withdraw from the accounts that have no taxes when I just retire, such as Roth accounts, or I will take from non-qualified accounts, which only have taxes on the gains, because I don't want to pay taxes. I'll put that off until I'm 70 and a half, or with the new law of the Secure Act, if it goes in place, it'll be 72 years old. But then again, you put yourself in a higher tax situation. So make sure you're withdrawing from the right accounts. Many times, unless you are specifically keeping your income low prior to 65 years old when you go on Medicare for insurance premium purposes, many times it's better to take from the accounts that you do have to pay taxes on to knock down those accounts a little bit, so when you do have to take your required minimum distribution, you're not getting hit as much. Tyler, what else on the Secure Act with the RMD change?
Yeah, good point there, Dean. When it comes to the Secure Act and RMDs, again, that stands for Required Minimum Distribution. Many people who are already in retirement know about it because they're currently doing it, but this will mainly affect those who right now are pre-retirees. You might be in your 50s or 60s, because obviously you're not the RMD age yet, which right now is 70 and a half years old. But the Secure Act proposes bumping that back to 72. So that would allow workers an additional 18 months to take advantage of the tax benefits and tax planning associated with the retirement accounts before starting withdrawals. And the reason why we talk about the RMDs a lot is because it's something that you don't want to ignore, you don't want to forget about. Reason being is that the RMD, your distribution, if you forget to take it, you are then penalized on 50% of what you should have taken. So it's one of the largest IRS penalties that there is. So definitely something that you don't want to forget about. And the purpose of the RMD, it's to ensure that people don't accumulate retirement funds, defer taxes, and then leaves these funds as an inheritance, because many people, they ask, well, why do I have to take it in the first place? Reason being is that all these years when you're working, the money goes directly from your payroll into your 401k or into an IRA, and you've never paid taxes on it. So the IRS, at some point, they force you to take money so they can collect tax dollars on it. Therefore, forcing you to withdraw at least some of the funds as taxable distributions while you're still alive, and can continue to defer the taxes on to generations down the line and have them inherit it. So the RMDs right now, by bumping it back a couple years, it can really it can help people who want to continue to work or don't need to touch their accounts yet. They can defer that for another couple years, but we're going to get into it a little bit, different strategies that you can take advantage of, because we really just covered all the different things that are going to happen, the main benefits under the Secure Act, but now we're going to touch on what can you do to take advantage of those.
Okay, but before we continue, we're going to take a quick break.
You're listening to Dean and Tyler Listle, investment advisors with Secure Retirement Solutions, located on Allied Street in Green Bay. For a complimentary review of your current investments, or if you have questions, please call them at 920-347-9888 or go to their website at srsplans.com.
Okay, as Tyler says, how do we take advantage now of the Secure Act if it gets signed into law? And again, just briefly, it's offering more 401k opportunities to part-time employees or smaller businesses, contributing to a traditional IRA as long as you desire, provided you're working. RMDs shift from 70 and a half to 72 years old. And inherited accounts are going to have to be spent down quicker if you inherit an IRA. So let's talk about things that you can do to take advantage. First of all, the obvious one is participate in a 401k. So if you're part-time and your employer now offers you the opportunity to contribute to a 401k, please get involved, especially if you have the opportunity for a match of any percentage. If your employer offers you 1%, at least put 1% in there. If they offer 3 or 4%, at least do 3 or 4%, because you're getting free money. So contribute there, especially in today's environment. There's a possibility that Social Security, Medicare, some of the other programs that are governmentally sponsored could be stressed. We don't know if they would take a reduction in years to come. That's a whole different topic that we'll talk about at a different time. But if that's the case, you need to take control of your own financial situation. Don't rely on somebody else or some program. So get involved with a 401k. That's the obvious thing that you can do. Tyler, what else should we be looking at to take advantage of the Secure Act options?
Yeah, good point there, Dean. That's obvious. That's obvious where when it comes to if you're a part-time worker, you're going to have more access to a 401k. As you said, it's pretty obvious, take advantage of that, especially if there's a match, it's free money. But in addition to that, if you're older than 70 and a half years old and you're still working, take advantage of continuing to contribute to an IRA. So an IRA, individual retirement account, you can contribute to that now, as I had mentioned earlier, after 70 and a half years old. And when you do, you can also take a tax deduction when you contribute. And in the future, you could potentially take the money out tax-free or at a lower tax rate once you retire, depending on your total income. So with a little bit of tax planning involved, if you contribute to a traditional IRA, we see many people that they get the best of both worlds, where when they put the money in, when they contribute, they can take a tax deduction now when they contribute, but at the same time, they can also withdraw money at a lower tax rate, which is good too. So another thing under the new Secure Act, again, consider contributing to an IRA if you're older than 70 and a half years old, because you can now do that if you're still working, whereas in the past you couldn't. But in addition to that, Dean, you had mentioned this earlier as well, but when it comes to your RMDs, if you do tax planning, you can either start taking retirement account withdrawals earlier in your retirement, so you're not forced to once RMDs kick in at the new proposed age of 72, or you can simply continue to let your IRA or 401k or different, whatever the pre-tax account is that you have, let it defer and grow for another couple years until RMDs start at 72, which you will then be forced to take your RMD at. So one thing that we advise people to do is potentially start withdrawing from your accounts earlier, before 70 and a half, or now the new proposed age would be 72. And reason being is that if you don't take any money from them before then, or if you take money from your Roth account or from a non-retirement account before then, well, then you're continuing to let your IRA or 401k grow, which is a good thing. But there's going to become a time where the IRS is going to tell you how much you have to take. And for many people, if they're not monitoring that, it's larger amount than they need, and they're taxed on the full thing, so they can't manage their tax situation as well. So just for an example, right now, if someone is turning 70 and a half years old, which is the current RMD age, again, it's proposed to bump it back to 72. But right now, if you're turning your RMD age this year and you've accumulated, let's say, $500,000, you've done a good job, you've accumulated $500,000 in an IRA or a 401k, then you would have to withdraw $18,250 this year. And that's whether you wanted to or not, because your first year RMD starts out at about 3.65% of the account value, and it slowly increases each year. So again, if you have $500,000, you'd have to take over $18,000. Well, we find that if you have Social Security, a husband and wife both have Social Security, one might have a pension, you might not need that full $18,000. What happens if you only need $10,000, $12,000, $15,000? Well, then you're forced to take more than you have to, and you're taxed on every penny of that. So what would be more beneficial would be taking some withdrawals earlier in retirement, so that way you don't have to take as much later, and your RMD won't be as high, and the government won't tell you as much, or won't tell you that you have to take as much as you do. So that's something that many people don't do, that they can benefit by doing, is simply doing some tax planning, doing some withdrawal planning, and taking money from pre-tax accounts like your 401k or your traditional IRA earlier in retirement, and still waiting until you're forced to. That way you can manage your tax burden much better.
Okay, good points, Tyler. Now, there's one thing that we really need to make sure that you're aware of, though, because there could be some significant tax implications here. And under the Secure Act, if it's signed into law, there's something regarding inherited accounts that need to be distributed earlier. Right now, if you were to inherit, just hypothetically, say you're 50 years old and you inherit your father's IRA who passed away at 70 years old or 75 years old, he would have been taking required minimum distributions. That means if you inherit that IRA or that 401k, you're required to take his required minimum distributions over your lifetime. So in other words, you can take that IRA, and even though you have to take a withdrawal each and every year, as your father did in this example, you can do it over your lifetime. Under the Secure Act, they want to speed up that process. They want to get inherited accounts spent down and that tax money back into our economy. So what that means is the Secure Act is going to require inherited accounts such as IRAs and 401ks that require minimum distributions have been taken out of are going to have to be spent down over 10 years. Now, again, understand the tax implication on that. You could have a substantial amount of money coming in that you have to liquidate from the retirement account over 10 years, taking your required minimum distributions through that time period. That could be a sizable taxable event. So you need to make sure you talk to your financial advisor, get some input if you run into these situations. Tyler, what about the details on it? A little bit more examples.
Yeah, so good point there, Dean. But when it comes to inheriting accounts, so right now, as it is, individuals who have an IRA or a 401k and they pass away, first off, if you are a spouse, so if a husband passes away and you're the wife, you can simply inherit that right into your name and treat it as if it were your own. Now, that will not change, but if you have a beneficiary who is a child, so if there's a husband passes away, the account would go to the wife, and then if the wife passes away, the beneficiary then would be, for many people, it might be their children, it might be a relative, but this goes for any non-spouse beneficiary. What can happen is right now, they can draw the funds down over the beneficiary's life expectancy. So this current rule allows a child to stretch the value of the IRA and take advantage of potential tax breaks. That's referred to as a stretch IRA, which many people know it as, where when you inherit money, you have to take the RMDs based on your the person who passed away based on their age, but you can stretch that out over your lifetime. Now, the new legislation under the Secure Act, it wouldn't allow a child to withdraw funds throughout their lifetime. Instead, on the death of the IRA owner, the individual beneficiary, they'd be required to withdraw the entire account balance within a 10-year period. So just one example before we close out here is if you're 50 years old and you inherit your father's $250,000 IRA when he passes away, you would need to withdraw the entire $250,000 during that 10-year period from 50 years old to 60 years old, which is a big change from the current law, which will let you distribute the assets during your own life expectancy. So right now, if your life expectancy, according to IRS tables, would be 84 years old for a 50-year-old male, then you can currently stretch it over a 34-year period. Well, and now under the new law, that 34 period would become a 10-year period, and if you're working during that 10-year period, you'll most likely pay substantially more on taxes over the course of that 10-year period than if you would that 34-year period like we can currently. So this is something that you have to be aware of if you're inheriting an account, especially if it's a large account. You're probably going to get hit pretty hard with taxes, so it's something that you simply have to plan for. There's no way of getting around it if it's signed into law, but the one major change that might be a little bit of a disadvantage for many people would be inheriting pre-tax retirement accounts, so keep that in mind as well.
Okay, that's all the time we have this week. See you later, and hope you'll join us again next week.
We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to Secure Retirement Solutions with your hosts, Dean and Tyler Listle, fully licensed retirement specialists from Secure Retirement Solutions in Green Bay. To get more information from Dean and Tyler, contact them at Secure Retirement Solutions on Allied Street in Green Bay. Call 920-347-9888 or visit them at srsplans.com. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Brokers International Financial Services, LLC. Member SIPC. Brokers International Financial Services is not an affiliated company.